So again we are coming back to the discussion of the greater wings of the sphenoid, myself Dr. Shoma Shaha, as I am continuing with the discussion of the greater wings of the sphenoid. So as we can see in this bat shaped bone, there are two large wing like structures which we call as the greater wings or the ala magna, and these are the pair of the lesser wings or the ala parva. Now, in the greater wing of the sphenoid, when we have to study, we can see there are some surfaces, some foramens, there is some borders, and some bony features which we will have to discuss one by one. So, start with the surface and the borders of this greater wing. So, here this is the cerebral surface. So, in this cerebral surface, we can see that several foramen are there, and also some grooves of arteries markings we will find, which we will discuss. So this is actually, if you go back to the base of the skull, then you will find that, so this is the area for the anterior cranial fossa, and this is the area for the middle cranial fossa. And in the middle cranial fossa, if you find, then you will see that it is actually the greater wings of the sphenoid, the cerebral surface. It contributes to formation of the anterior 1/3 portion of this middle cranial fossa. And again we now see what are the different foramens that we can find in this area. So first of all, if you can see, you will find that there is this, the foramen rotundum. In the cerebral surface we find foramen rotundum is there, and this gives passage to the maxillary nerve. Maxillary nerve will pass through the foramen rotundum to go anteriorly. Then here lies slightly backward, we find an oval foramen known as the foramen ovale. So what passes through the foramen ovale we will discuss. There are some structures, that is some arteries, nerves and some veins. So it gives passage to the motor and the sensory roots of mandibular nerve. It also gives passage to the accessory meningeal artery, the lesser petrosal nerve, as also an emissary vein which connects the cavernous sinus with pterygoid venous plexus. As I have already discussed in the previous class, that on either side of the body of the sphenoid, that is on the two lateral surface, lodges the two cavernous sinuses, the cavernous sinus. So pterygoid venous plexus and cavernous sinus are connected by the help of emissary vein that passes through this foramen ovale. And if you go further back from the foramen ovale and laterally, you will be having to find one foramen which is known as the foramen spinosum. So let's get back to the original bone. In the original bone, if you find, so here this side, this is the spine of the sphenoid. Spine is nicely seen in this side. On the other side we cannot find it, it is probably broken. So here this is the foramen spinosum, and what passes through this foramen spinosum, this is giving passage to the middle meningeal artery, the nervus spinosus, and the posterior trunk of middle meningeal sinus. So these two foramens are often very important because of more important discussion, and often in the exams the students are often asked to comment what are the, show the foramen rotundum and the foramen ovale, and also what are the structures passing through it, as also about this foramen spinosum. Besides this, you may have some other foramen also, that is known as the foramen of Arnoldi and the foramen of Vesely, but these are actually occasional foramens and they are not always present. Sometimes it so happen, if lesser petrosal nerve does not pass through this foramen ovale, it may pass through another separate foramen known as foramen of Arnoldi, that may lie medially between the bony bar in between ovale and the foramen spinosum. In between this foramen ovale and also the foramen spinosum, in this bony bar, if lesser petrosal nerve does not transmit through this foramen ovale, it may transmit through the foramen of Arnoldi, also often called canaliculus innominatus. Another foramen that you have often come across, that is the foramen of Vesely. So that is usually found medial to the foramen ovale, and actually it gives passage to an emissary vein connecting cavernous sinus to the pterygoid venous plexus. So for the time being, we may just have a look at a diagram in order to have a clear idea of the some foramens that we are finding. So see, here we have drawn the sphenoid bone from the anterior aspect. It is the front view of the sphenoid bone that I have drawn here, and here you can actually find the two lesser wings of the sphenoid, and this is the anterior surface of the body of the sphenoid, and in the anterior surface of the body we will find also the sphenoid concha, that is having upper vertical and the lower horizontal part, and they are separated by the sphenoidal crest. And we also find the sphenoidal foramen, which gives passage to actually the sphenoidal ear sinuses. Next, this is which area, that is we can see this is the orbital surface of the greater wing. We will come to that orbital surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid, and these are actually the vaginal processes. The under surface of the sphenoid, inferior surface of body of sphenoid give rise to some vaginal process with some here it articulates actually the sphenoidal rostrum. Here there will be a V-shaped diverging alley of the vomer which will articulate, and it will cover up this area. So there will be the formation of a syndialysis type of the joint here. And on this lateral bar you can also find that by the side of the greater wing, this is anterior view, we are seeing foramen rotundum is there. We are seeing that there is the foramen ovale here, and there is the foramen spinosum, and just beneath foramen rotundum there is also another opening from anterior aspect that we can see, that is of the anterior opening of the pterygoid canal, anterior opening of the pterygoid canal. And these are the aspects, different aspects of the pterygoid processes. Okay, so this is one view, and just for a revision of all the foramen that we have studied till now, we have made some chart, that is or the mnemonic you can say, that is foramen ovale, the structures that are passing through it can be memorized like this. Male, M is for the motor and the sensory roots of mandibular nerve, A for the accessory meningeal artery, L is the lesser petrosal nerve, E for the emissary vein connecting the cavernous sinus with the pterygoid venous plexus, and the foramen spinosum, that is collected through it passes this ANS, answer, short form for answer. It is middle meningeal artery, nervus spinosus, and the posterior trunk of the middle meningeal sinus. And through rotundum, already we have told that it is only one nerve, that is the maxillary nerve. It's easiest to remember. These are two nerves, that is the foramen Arnoldi will give passage to lesser petrosal nerve if it does not pass to the ovale, and also the emissary sphenoidal foramen, it will give passage to the emissary vein. Now, so after having done with this aspect, cerebral aspect, in the cerebral aspect we can also find that there is the marking for this middle meningeal grooves for the middle meningeal sinuses, grooves for the middle meningeal artery, that is present here. Now we look into the lateral surface, or you can say that this is the temporal surface, and in this lateral surface you can see that there is a presence of a crest which divides it into an upper area and a lower area. In the upper area it gives attachment to the temporalis muscle, and in the lower area and this area it is also called the infratemporal crest, and the lower area it gives rise to the lateral pterygoid muscle. So this is the lateral surface of each greater wing, divided by the horizontal, this is the line, and this horizontal line that divides, or a crest, infratemporal crest, the upper area for temporal fossa, temporalis muscle, lower area for the infratemporal fossa. Here we get the lateral pterygoid muscle, upper head of the lateral pterygoid. Now you come to the orbital surface. Finally, in the anterior surface we go back, and in the orbital surface we find what? That it is a quadrilateral plate-like structure. So you find that this is one is a quadrilateral plate, and upper part is articulating, and medially it is non-articulating, and again laterally it is articulating, inferiorly it is non-articulating. So if you find this orbital surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid, so in the upper margin, the greater wing of upper margin, it is articular, it is joining with actually orbital plate of the frontal bone, and also it joined here with some part with the zygomatic bone. So to see this, we will have to go to the frontal bone. So here I have already shown it that the frontal bone is articulating with this frontal bone and the sphenoid bone. They are articulating one by one with each other, and here you can see that this is the cribriform plate of ethmoid with the ethmoidal spine. And if you turn it anteriorly, then what do you find? In the anterior aspect, you can see that this one is the orbital plate. This is the orbital plate of the orbital surface of the greater wing, and this orbital surface of the greater wing is getting articulation with the orbital surface of frontal. And when you see into the skull, then you find that this one is the zygomatic, this italic lettered F-shaped bone. This is the entire zygomatic bone. And what you see, you can also see that this is the orbital surface, and the orbital surface is articulating not only with the frontal above but also laterally, superolaterally it articulates here with the zygomatic bone. And by the side, when you turn to try it by the side, then clearly we can see that this is the temporal surface of greater wing, and here you can see the suture. So this area we call it as the terion. Here this is squamous part of temporal bone, and this is the temporal surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid, and here the squamous part of the frontal. So three together, and we form here what is known as the terion. Similarly, on this side also you will be able to see. See, this is the temporal surface of the greater wing, and here is the formation of the terion. This is the temporal surface of the temporal bone, and this is the frontal bone. So what you find actually is that this orbital surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid, it is actually non-articular in medial side, and it is non-articular in the lateral side, but it is articular in the upper part, and it is articular also in the lateral part. So in the medial part, what does it give rise to? It gives rise to one retort shaped gap or a flask shaped gap. This is superior orbital fissure. Similarly, below you also find that there is one inferior orbital fissure, which is again another slit like here. If you can see here, yes, so we can see here that this is the inferior orbital fissure, and above this is the superior orbital fissure. So actually the greater wing of the sphenoid, what happens? So this is the greater wing. It is easier to show it here, because in the greater wing you can find that this is the raised margin in the medial margin of the orbital surface. So this is the area from where it gives attachment to the annulus common tendinar ring, from which attaches actually the origin of the four recti muscles of the eyeball. So here this is the area. And if you now look just at, have a look at the superior orbital fissure. We can have a look at the superior orbital fissure. So what are the structures that we are having to see into the superior orbital fissure? So if you have to follow this diagram, we can just have one schematic diagram that we have done. So in this diagram, what you can see that this is the superior orbital fissure that we have drawn here, and it is by the attachment of this common tendinous ring. By the attachment of the common tendinous ring, it is divided into three halves: lateral, intermediate, and the medial portion. In the lateral portion, What are the structures that are passing? We can see that there are some nerves and there are some artery and vein. So what are the nerves and the artery and the vein? So one by one, the lacrimal frontal and the trochlear nerves, and the two arteries that are passing through the lateral compartment, they are lacrimal branch and the recurrent meningeal branch of ophthalmic artery, as also one vein passes which is known as the superior ophthalmic vein. And you get to see here again another part, intermediate part. So in the intermediate part we have again passage of some important nerves. So what are those? These are the superior and the inferior rami of the third cranial nerve, and the nasociliary nerve also, which lies in between the two divisions of the third cranial nerve. We also find that there is the sixth nerve or the abducens nerve. Occasionally sometimes superior ophthalmic vein may also pass through it. Again, medial part of the superior orbital fissure, so we have inferior ophthalmic vein. So inferior ophthalmic vein only. So now if you consider this, often you get a short note actually to write on this superior orbital fissure. So then you can just write in point wise with the help of a nicely drawn diagram, label diagram, and what are the structures which are passing through this retort shaped superior orbital fissure, which is divided into three parts by the attachment of this common tendinous ring for origin of the four recti muscle of the eyeball, right? So now this is about your superior orbital fissure. So we again go back to the original bone. So now in this bone again, if we go come back, then what we find that after this orbital surface, we have found the orbital surface to be articulating, and these are the superior orbital fissure here. What passes through it we have already discussed. This is about your entire cerebral surface, and this is about the temporal surface. In the temporal surface for the temporal fossa, this is the for the temporal fossa, and this is the area for the infratemporal fossa. This is the infratemporal crest, right? And this is your orbital surface, and for the articulation with the zygomatic and the frontal bone. So this completes our greater wing of the sphenoid. And about the lesser wing of the sphenoid, that I have already told something while we were teaching about the superior surface. So in the lesser wings we are getting what, that lesser wings are actually this smooth posterior margin of the lesser wing. They are forming the boundaries of the anterior cranial fossa. So if you look again into the base of the skull, then this is the area. In the base of the skull, what you will find, that this is the lesser wing posterior margin which is smooth, and it is forming the anterior cranial fossa boundary. And these are the two clinoid processes which we have already discussed, the anterior clinoid, the posterior clinoid, and the middle clinoid. Now here regarding the attachments of the clinoid, we have some important observations to make here. So in order to make you understand, I have just given a schematic diagram. Try to give you a schematic diagram. See, from the anterior clinoid process, if you find, you will find that one green line I have drawn, that is actually a U-shaped line. It is giving the free margin of the attachment of, showing the free margin attachment of the tentorium cerebelli. And from the posterior clinoid process, which are posteriorly, you can find that this is the attached margin. So attached margin and the free margin, they are crossing which area? They are crossing at the level of this posterior clinoid process. So here they are is forming one triangular structure which we call oculomotor trigon, and here also passages of the third and the fourth cranial nerves, which we will again discuss later on in the subsequent classes. So again we come back here. So this is the area for lodgement of cavernous sinus, and if you now look into the posterior border of the greater wings, in this area there is actually, it is articulating, we can show into the base of the skull that it articulates with the this tip of the petrous part of the temporal bone. And as it articulates with the tip of the petrous part of the temporal bone, then what actually is formed, you can find that this one large foramen is formed here. This is actually known as the foramen lacerum. So you can here clearly see that this is the tip of the petrous part of temporal bone, and this is the petrosal process of the greater this body. Just by the side of the body of the sphenoid we can see petrosal process, and petrosphenoid ligament is actually joining with this tip of the apex of the petrous temporal. And at apex of petrous temporal also there is opening for the anterior opening for the carotid artery. Carotid artery comes out through beneath this petrosphenoid ligament to lie along this lateral surface of the lies along the lateral surface of the body of the sphenoid in this sulcus, cavernous sinus. Along in the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus it lies, and again it goes anteriorly and gives branches, that is ophthalmic branches, meningeal branches and all, anterocerebral branches, etc. This will be given. So this area, it is known as this foramen lacerum. This is the area for the named as the foramen lacerum, in which I have given the wire. So actually the medial part of this posterior border of the sphenoid, this is the posterior border, and here it is the medial part. So medial part is getting to form the anterior boundary of the foramen lacerum, and here it actually presents the posterior opening of the pterygoid canal. So we can find that this one is the posterior opening of the pterygoid canal. If we insert the wire, try to insert each other like this, and whether we can come out to the anterior opening. So which one is the anterior opening of the pterygoid canal? Let me show you that this is the anterior opening. This is the anterior opening, and here this is the anterior opening of the pterygoid canal. So anterior and posterior, this passage actually gives passage to the pterygoid vessels and the nerve, and another important thing, that this posterior border, medially it is actually giving boundary of the foramen lacerum, that you have seen in the base of the skull. We have seen that it is actually giving passage to the foramen lacerum, this medial part of the posterior border. And on the lateral part, if you find, then you will see that it gives actually rising to one area which is known as the sulcus tubi. So which one is the sulcus tubi? Let me show you. This is the area for the sulcus tubi. Sulcus tubi means this is the undersurface of the petrous part of the temporal, and here it is the posterior opening of the carotid canal that we can see. This is the posterior opening of the carotid canal, and this is the posterior undersurface of this actually petrous temporal, and this is the sulcus tubi. And sulcus tubi is actually, it is lodging meant for the lodgement of this cartilaginous part of the auditory tube, and it is seen in the exterior of the base of the skull. So that completes about the lesser wing of the sphenoid, and only one thing that is remaining, that tip of the, this is the tip of the greater wing. The tip of the greater wing is actually beveled on the inner surface. It is beveled on the inner surface, and it overlaps for articulation with the sphenoidal angle of the corresponding also parietal bone, and we have already told that it gives rise to this pterium, that is the triangular area that will be formed. And now we have this, that is the spine of the sphenoid. Let us come to the spine of the sphenoid. It is a small pointed process projecting downward from the junction of your posterior border, and also from the this one, that is the squamosal border of the greater wing. This gives attachment to three ligaments and two muscles. So ligaments are sphenomandibular ligament, anterior ligament of malleus, and the pterygospinous ligament. The sphenomandibular ligament, anterior ligament of malleus, and the pterygospinous ligament. So sphenomandibular ligament is actually extending from the spine of the sphenoid to lingula of mandibular foramen. So mandible is not with me, but you can see in the mandibular foramen there is the lingula guarding the mandibular foramen. So with that lingula, sphenoidal spine articulate with the help of this sphenomandibular ligament, and it is actually developed from fibrous envelope of Meeker's cartilage of the first branchial arch. Another attachment next is the anterior ligament of the malleus. Anterior ligament of malleus will extend from the spine of the sphenoid up to the anterior process of malleus. And last is the pterygospinous ligament, which gives attachment from spine to a tubercle on posterior border of the lateral pterygoid plate. So this is our lateral pterygoid plate. In the lateral pterygoid plate, the tubercle which is present, from the tubercle up to the this sphenoidal spine, from the tubercle up to the sphenoidal spine is actually the attachment of the pterygospinous ligament, and two muscles are also attached. One is the tensor veli palatini muscle. The sphenoidal spine gives attachment one to the tensor veli palatini muscle, and another muscle that is also attached, that is known as the tensor tympani. So from this sphenoidal spine, you can see that this is the sphenoidal spine, gives attachment to three ligaments and two muscles. And one important relation that is very notable to remember here, that is the spine of the sphenoid is related medially to cartilaginous part of auditory tube and chorda tympani nerve, and laterally it is related with the auriculotemporal nerve. It is related laterally to auriculotemporal nerve, and medially it is related to the cartilaginous part of this auditory tube as also to the chorda tympani. So if there is any injury to the cranium in which there is fracture of sphenoidal spine, then what will happen? There will be actually damage to the sphenoidal spine, will give rise to the damage to both the this auriculotemporal and also the chorda tympani division. So secretomotor paralysis will be occurring of all the three pairs of the salivary gland on the affected side. So what will be the patient suffering from? If there is the sphenoidal spine fracture of one side, then patient may complain with the loss of the taste sensation and loss of the secretion of the salivas from this on this side, that is from anterior 2/3 of the corresponding half of the tongue, there will be the loss of this secretomotor secretions. So this completes about our greater week, and remaining is about the pterygoid processes. So we find that the two pterygoid processes which are present, we will discuss it again in the later class.